Hi, welcome back. I'm Lee Sharon, and this is Old Tavern Farm. Today I am surrounded by some of the kitchen's most humble ingredients: flour, sugar, oil, eggs. There's a tiny little star in here, cocoa powder. We're making brownies today. Now, of course, I have a recipe that I use at work that I have had for donkey's years. I mean, I don't even remember where this recipe came from. And of course, it's written down on a piece of commercial paper toweling. And it's been converted up and down. I don't know if you can see the chicken scratch. I've converted it up, I've converted it down, I've changed it around. It's a great recipe. There's sometimes something you run into when you are looking up brownie recipes, or you make a brownie out of a box from the grocery store, and it'll say, do you want one that's chewy, more fudgy, or do you want one that's more cake-like? And this, my friends, is the Goldilocks of brownies. This is neither cake-like nor fudgy. It's somewhere in between. It is the most amazing brownie you're ever gonna make. It's so simple. What does it have? 8 ingredients. 8 ingredients combined in the right order, in the right quantities, and you have a magic brownie that your whole family and all your friends are gonna love. I've made this recipe for tons of my friends, for tons of events. You can add chocolate chips to it. You can add nuts if you have people that aren't allergic. You can top it with fudge, with the ganache fudge layer. You can, if you have some friends who actually like coconut, I have tons of people I bake for that don't like coconut. You can put coconut in there. You can put whatever you want into these, or you can just make them plain. Some people really like just a good old plain brownie. So I am going to show you how to make this brownie that I make at work all the time. And then we're going to take a look at it when we're finished baking it, and we're going to see how good it is. So let's go make some brownies.
I start these brownies by adding 5 whole eggs to my mixer bowl. I let the machine spin for just a moment in order to break up the yolks. Once I've done that, I will add 4 cups of white granulated sugar, just gently raining it down over the eggs and allowing the machine to process the 2 ingredients together. I will allow the machine to work on medium for a minute or 2 until these ingredients are light and fluffy. At this point, I'm ready to add 1.5 cups of liquid shelf-stable oil. I prefer to use light olive oil, but by all means, use what you have and use what you like. I add the oil a little bit at a time in order to give the fat in the egg yolks a chance to absorb it. If you add the oil all at once, the eggs and sugar will sometimes separate and become difficult to work with. Adding the oil a little at a time will create a light and fluffy texture that will help the brownie rise in the oven. This step does take a few minutes, but it's worth it in order to get a light, fluffy, delicate brownie. Once I have added all my oil, I will let the machine mix on a medium speed for just a few moments to make sure everything's well incorporated. At this point, I'm ready to add 1 cup of cocoa powder. I will let my machine start slowly in order to avoid a giant plume of cocoa smoke. Once these ingredients have had a chance to mix together for a minute or two, I will stop my mixer and add my dry ingredients. That's 2½ cups of all-purpose flour, and I've also put 1 teaspoon of salt into this flour. I will then add 2 teaspoons of baking powder, and the very last ingredient is 2 teaspoons of vanilla. I'll start my mixer out slowly and gradually increase the speed. This mixture will only need to mix for a few minutes before it's ready to pan up in a pan of your choice and bake for 30 minutes at 350 degrees. I will put a link in the description box for the type of pan and riser that I'm using today.
There. So you see, if you have the right ingredients in the right quantities, using the right technique, you can also make magic. These brownies are cakey and chewy and gooey and delicious and have a lovely classic brownie top to them. And this recipe makes 32 brownies this size. What is that? 2 inches by 3 inches, something like that. You can always cut them to your own preferred size. And they freeze beautifully, so if you make too many, this is kind of a larger recipe, but if you make too many, you can just pop them into a freezer bag and put them in your freezer, and they last for weeks. They won't last for weeks because you'll get them out and sneak them at midnight, like the rest of us do when we have sweet cravings in the middle of the night. I also wanted to tell you that this recipe uses Dutch processed cocoa, so it's darker, much darker than your regular sort of store-bought lighter cocoa powder. It's certainly available in the grocery store. I did get this at my co-op, and just makes a darker, more chocolatey, sort of more gooey brownie. I'm throwing brownie crumbs all over the place. But it is a good option for you to try if you like a really deep, dark chocolate flavor. I can't speak to the nutrition of this. I actually think I'd like to look that up. I'd like to think it's a little more healthy than the lighter cocoa, but regardless, it has a lot more chocolate flavor. That's really what I'm worried about right here. So, the other thing too is if you line your paper, your baking sheet with parchment paper, you can just slide it out of the pan onto a cutting board, as you see here I have it on my cutting board, and you can cut it right on the cutting board without having to negotiate through the edge of your baking sheet with your knife. Again, this makes 32, and I just simply pulled it, let it cool for about half an hour, pulled it off of my sheet pan, and cut it up, and I'm going to start freezing these because these are for our little reception and anybody who wants to drop by. I like to have things in the freezer for when we have visitors. So I want to thank you for visiting and invite you to go and make your own plate of magic brownies, and just enjoy the process and make them your own. Add chocolate chips in, add white chocolate chips, add peanut butter frosting on the top, put some holiday sprinkles on there. Whatever you want to do, make it your own and enjoy it with your family. So once again, thanks for visiting, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.